What's crackalackin'? It's your boy Broshmo, just in case you did not know so. And we're doing another 2020 NFL mock draft. Like I said, I'm pumping these out every 2 weeks since, you know, the draft order is constantly changing, man. The Falcons, they're on a roll. They're on a roll. But I'm using the current stand-ins. And yeah, without further ado, let's just go ahead. Let's jump in. We're going to be with the first overall pick, right? Cincinnati Bengals. There's a lot of different ways they can go with this pick. A lot of you would say, okay, well, it's obviously going to be a quarterback. But see, the problem with that is quarterback isn't the best player on the board, at least in my opinion. Chase Young, I think, is a generational talent. I think he is hands down the best player in this draft. In college football, we haven't seen anyone rush the passer at such a rate, like, ever. He's a phenomenal talent. The dude's just a monster. So you could address that. You could get a generational talent on your defense. I mean, it's the first overall pick. You could literally go anywhere. And we know this team's kind of thrown in the towel when they said, hey, Ryan Finley, go out there. Good luck. Poor guy. But you know what? Ryan Finley, he's a good quarterback. He's a good backup quarterback. I think they will address quarterback in this draft. And they're going to take the top one available. That's Joe Burrow out of LSU. He's been the best quarterback in college football. He's a great deep ball thrower, very accurate deep ball thrower. That bodes well for John Ross. He's got also Joe Mixon, Tyler Boyd there, Tyler Eifert if they decide to re-sign him. He's a fine tight end. So there's a lot of good spots for that offense. There's a lot of good talent on that offense. That I know it doesn't look good now, but I mean the offensive line will be better next year too with Jonah Williams coming back. So there's a lot to like about the Bengals, especially if they come in, they get a hometown hero, an Ohio native. So I like the pick there. Let's go ahead. Let's talk about the Redskins because they need a variety of things. And I know initially off the bat you might be like, well, they need offensive line help. They need to get offensive line. But I mean, yeah, okay, Trent Williams probably played his last snap there quite a bit ago, so I don't think he'll be back. Donald Penn, the dude's like 35, so I don't think he'll be back. I think they'll be able to re-sign Brandon Sheriff. So you could go offensive line, but the problem is Chase Young is still on the board, and you could say, okay, well, maybe receiver Jerry Jeudy. Let's get someone for Dwayne Haskins next to Scary Terry. Well, they're starting a lot of their young players right now. They've benched a lot of their veterans. So guy like Kelvin Harmon, he's coming in. He's a good possession receiver coming out of NC State this past draft, and so I think I like him. You don't have to go receiver just yet in a receiver deep draft. But I mean, Chase Young's on the board, and I don't think you could pass up Chase Young. You might be like, well, I've seen some people mock Tua here. Basically, they pull a Josh Rosen with Dwayne Haskins. Like, I don't know about that. But Chase Young, I got him here. He's like I said, he's been one of the best pass rushers we've ever seen in college football. The guy's rushing the passer at he's winning pass rush snaps by like 35%, which is like anything over 30 is ridiculous. So the guy's been a monster and hands down the best one in the draft. So you come in, you get a guy who could play right next to Montez Sweat, Ryan Kerrigan as well. Kerrigan, eventually they're gonna have to move on from him, so I like that pick. I know ideally I think the Redskins, they would want to trade back and accumulate more picks because they don't have a lot, so but I can't do that. So next pick we got the Giants, and the Giants. So I could see them going receiver here. His Golden Tate, it's like in his 30s. Sterling Shepard has suffered from concussion issues. I mean, the dude's in concussion protocol almost every week. And then they do have Darius Slayton, who has looked good, but he's not a number 1. So they could go receiver here. They could go edge, but I think they'd be reaching at the 3rd overall pick for like a guy like AJ Epinesa. So they could go edge, but I don't think they will. Offensive line, though, I think is the most attractive thing to me, because Nate Solder, he's out. They got Mike Remmer. He's out too. So I mean, they're both older tackles that are just. It's literally like every week, Daniel Jones is getting mollywopped, dude, and the dude's a fumbling machine. So they need to protect that edge. So I think they're going to go with Andrew Thomas here out of Georgia. The dude's big. He's athletic. He's been dominating the SEC. I know that the system there at Georgia kind of protects him. He doesn't see a lot of true pass blocking snaps. But the dude can't. You can't get by him. Ask Julian Akawara. Ask Khalid Kareem from Notre Dame. The guy is just dominant. Shoot, ask Jonathan Greenyard from Florida. Like, this guy, week in, week out, he puts out dominant performances. So we're here at the Dolphins, and things get a little tricky here because you could go Jerry Jeudy, but I've liked what I've seen with the Dolphins receiving corps, so it's not necessarily a pressing need. Devontae Parker, if they bring him back, he's looked extremely good this year. Preston Williams, before the injury, looked really good, so I don't think it's that pressing of a need that you need to use your first overall pick on. You could go offensive line, but then you would be kind of reaching. You could probably address it a little later in the first round. Honestly, the Dolphins could trade back here, because the big thing is, I know the Dolphins are probably the biggest team that was high on Tua. The injury, doesn't look like the injury is going, like, it looks like the recovery time should be, like, it looks like he should make a full recovery. It looks like everything in line's going good with that. We won't know for a couple of months if he will be, if he'll be prone to, I think it's called AVN, the avascular necrosis. So we won't know that for a couple of months. But someone in the comments, one of my prior videos brought up that, and they could sit him for the 2020 season while he gets healthy, and just kind of let the team get a little bit better. And I like that idea. I like the idea of not just going in and having him start. So yeah, with this pick, I ended up going with Tua Tagovailoa. I like the idea of sitting him for the first year. You could actually honestly start Josh Rosen. You could bring back Ryan Fitzpatrick, and you could get now some of your rookies, some of your year one players, get them into the system. This way they got some experience under their belt before you throw Tua technically to the Wolves. So I like Tua with this pick. So we're going with Tua. And then we got the Jets on the board. Jets really need offensive line. You could say Tristan Wirfs. You could also go edge here. You could go corner because they need an outside corner in the worst way. Tremaine Johnson's been booty. So they could go Jeffrey Okudah. They could go with edge Epinesa. I still think that's a little too high. I don't think he's a top 5 pick. But about the only reliable receiver he has is Jamison Crowder. Robbie Anderson's been a big disappointment, and they've so much so that they brought Demaryius Thomas, who's not washed up, but he's far past his prime, come in and help. So I got the Jets getting Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver out of Alabama. The guy is just phenomenal. The guy is probably the best wide receiver prospect we've seen since Julio, since Megatron. I say this all the time, and a lot of other analysts say this, a lot of other scouts say this. The guy is really good. He just doesn't have the same size. He's 6'2", so he's not like he's small, but he's got great straight line speed. He's a smooth route runner. For the most part, he's got really good hands. I know he had 3 drops in that LSU game, but I think that's just kind of a outlier. It's like, hey, he can drop the ball, but more times than not, he doesn't. And what I liked, he came back on off one of his drops. He dropped for a touchdown. Next play, caught a touchdown. So he was like, I ain't letting that go. So I like this. Get a playmaker for Sam Darnold. And on to the next pick, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And honestly, you could say offensive tackle, corner, secondary. Like honestly, their corners are starting, like Carlton Davis and Jamel Dean. They're starting to come into their own a little bit. I think they still need to address corner, but they're starting to play a little bit better there. It's really their back end, the safeties that are really been really bad. But yeah, you can address corner, you can address tackle, because tackle has just been a huge weakness for a long time. But their biggest weakness is quarterback. There's a guy that is right up Bruce Arians' alley here. He's got size, he's got the arm, he's a great leader. So I went ahead, I went with Justin Herbert, quarterback out of Oregon. I think we're gonna see a lot. I think there's no way that Herbert makes it out of the top 10 as far as picks. Yeah, I think we're gonna probably. I don't think Tua will fall either. He shouldn't. So yeah, I got that. They get their new quarterback. They don't re-sign Jameson Winston. I think they're gonna let him walk. So they get a quarterback. They come in, plug and play. It's Arians' guy. So yeah, that's what we're doing there. Then we got the Broncos, who would have probably loved to take Justin Herbert. I mean, he basically oozes a John Elway type guy. But now they could kind of. I was thinking Jeffrey Okudah for this pick. I think with Chris Harris likely gone, they definitely need some depth. They need some. They just need some star power at the corner position. But what they really need is to address that offensive line, in my opinion. So I have them getting Tristan Wirfs out of Iowa. I know not a lot of people like Tristan Wirfs, and I don't see how you cannot like him. The dude physically has no limitations. He's got quick feet. He's proved to be a better pass blocker this year. I mean, he could come in and immediately start because Bowles has been trash. So they get some protection for whoever it's going to be their quarterback, Brandon Allen or Drew Lock. So if you really want to address quarterback, just trade back in the first round, or I don't know. I don't see them getting if Justin Herbert's off the board. I don't see them going with a quarterback. So I got them getting Wirfs. You could go receiver here, but I think I think protection, they need to protect their quarterback. They could get, like I said, it's a deep wide receiver draft. You could get a wide receiver later in the draft. So let's go ahead, let's take a look at the Falcons. Obviously, dude, that defense has been playing a lot better recently. A lot better. Now that Dan Quinn ain't making the calls. But you could say edge. But again, it looks like they're getting better play from their edge now. Vic Beasley. Was it McKinley? Claiborne, man. I love Adrian Claiborne. But so you could go Epinesa here, but I don't think you can pass up on a Jeffrey Okudah. So I got them getting Okudah. That secondary has been a liability this year, but they have played a little better. But Desmond Trufant, you could probably not move on from him, but he is getting up there in years and dog years, and you just come in and get another guy, because the safeties are kind of set. I like what they have at safety. They just need to be able to stay healthy. So I think they address corner here. Jeffrey Okudah, I have him. I think he's my 5th or 6th highest player on my board. So yeah, you get a good pick there. And then we're talking about the Cardinals. I just don't know how you can't go offensive line. I mean, you could. I know a lot of people are high on Derek Brown out of Auburn for defensive interior. You could go Epinesa, help get some pressure off the edge. but you need to protect your franchise quarterback, and they have not been able to do that this year. So in my opinion, I ended up going with Alex Leatherwood, tackle out of Alabama. I know he had a rough game against LSU, but for the most part, he's got quick feet. He's been outstanding this whole year. He also provides positional versatility. He's played almost everywhere on that offensive line, so I like that. Go ahead, get a guy to protect, and then you could address those other things later. You can do it in a free agency. It's kind of up to you. Next, we got Detroit Lions on the board, and for me, I think you gotta go defense here. But where do you go on defense? We still have Grant Delpit here, but he's been a nightmare. He's missed a third of his tackles, so I don't know. I think he's fallen down my board quite a bit. We could also go corner because Christian Fulton's still there, but they have invested a lot in corner, so you could probably take one of the higher guys on the board. So for me, this pick came down to Isaiah Simmons, who could come in and actually be a phenomenal linebacker in coverage, which they've been kind of missing because was it Jared Davis? I don't know. He's been better, but he's still so. It's not like he's elite. He's more of an average type of player, but or you could go AJ Epinesa because they really need a pass rush, and AJ Epinesa, and I went with AJ Epinesa out of Iowa. The dude's been unblockable the last couple of weeks. He's just been really, really good. He's got great size at 280, but he keeps athleticism with that, so he can move around that defensive line, much like a Trey Flowers. So I like him with this pick here. So I went AJ Epinesa. Next, we got the Chargers. The Chargers. I got them on the clock. I got them grabbing well, let's talk this out, because offensive line, right? I don't think there's anyone I would be willing to snag at offensive line right now. There's a guy I'm projecting that could be a top 15 guy, but for the Chargers, I don't know. I think this Kansas City game made it apparent that you need to move on from Phillip Rivers. I mean, he's a free agent this year anyway. They're probably going to resign him for another year, but you need to find the next heir apparent. And it sucks because I think you'd be reaching at this point. If you were the Chargers, I think you might want to trade down. But I think there will be a fourth quarterback to enter the first round between Jake Fromm and Jacob Eason. And I ended up going with Jacob Eason because he's got an incredible arm. He looks like, don't get me wrong, he looks like a different quarterback under pressure. So he definitely needs a clean pocket, which is something the Chargers have not been allowed or been able to give Phillip Rivers. But if you re-sign Rivers, you don't have to start this guy immediately, which is good. But he's got such a gigantic arm. He's got literally a great arm. The dude can make any throw. And I know Phillip Rivers doesn't want to mentor nobody, but whatever, dude. You come in, you just play a final year in your contract while they try to get some pieces for the offensive line for the next quarterback. Because I think you go ahead now, because the minute Phillip Rivers is gone, dude, you're in total rebuild mode. And they don't really have the pieces to do that. They're getting kind of old in some areas and some positions. So I think you got to strike the iron while it's hot. Yeah, that's the saying. So if they bring in Jacob Eason, they sit him for a year, comes in, plays the next year, you keep that Super Bowl window, playoff window, let's be honest, playoff window open with a quarterback that could honestly just come in and start and play. I don't like him going this early, but it's quarterback position. Quarterbacks always go this early. Let's be honest. Next, we got the Jaguars. A lot of different areas we go with the Jaguars. You could go corner, the secondary in general. The offensive line's been kind of so-so this year, so you could try to upgrade some positions there. But I think the biggest thing is you need to get with corner and linebacker, I think probably the bigger needs, but I say go ahead and get a wide receiver. because CeeDee Lamb's still on the board. I went with CeeDee Lamb out of Oklahoma. The dude's been a playmaker. He's got good size. He's got good speed. You get a guy who can come in and play right next to Chark, because D.D. Westbrook, he is a slot guy. So they got a fearsome trio right there, and you give Phillip Rivers more weapons to work with, or Nick Foles, more weapons to work with. So I ended up going with CeeDee Lamb. Next, we got the Browns, and yes, Grant Delpit's on the board. They could come in and address safety because Morgan Burnett's getting older. What is it, Demarius, right? What is it? It is, yeah, Demarius Randall. He's he's a free agent after this year. I don't see them re-signing him. So they go ahead and you could say Grant Delpit, but I think their best offensive tackle, their best offensive tackle this year has been Greg Robinson, and that's a problem. He's been a journeyman since being a bust. He has gotten better, but I don't think to be any more than a what would you say, a backup. So I think they need to address it. Now Josh Jones out of Houston. I am going with Josh Jones. This guy's going to be huge. He already got accepted a Senior Bowl invite. I think he is going to come out and just be a stud. A lot of people think he's a little raw with his technique. I think he's a lot more far along than some people think he is. He's a phenomenal pass blocker. And he's had to go up against a little bit of competition, dude. He had to face Oklahoma. He's faced Patrick Johnson from Tulane, so it's not like he hasn't faced tough competition. The guy's graded extremely well for PFF. It's got great size, so I don't mind where I think this kind of looks like a reach right now. It's like, well, they're reaching just to get Josh Jones. I think when it's all said and done, though, Josh Jones will be a top 15 pick. So this is a little projected on my part, but I think you have to with the Browns. They really need a guy to come in and be able to protect Baker Mayfield, because the dude's got to get away. He's having to deliver the ball so quickly. You don't want him to have to rush through progressions just because his offensive line sucks. Offensive tackles, excuse me. There's some talent on that interior. All right, so we're at the Las Vegas Raiders now, and I think you just can't pass on. Because there were a couple of guys I felt you could say Grant Delpit, but they're kind of already good at safety. Derek Brown, they could get some help in that interior. Christian Fulton, they could come and get some corner help. I went with linebacker. I went with Isaiah Simmons out of Clemson. This guy is too good to pass up. He's got linebacker size with safety athleticism. The dude's really good. I think he's this new breed, this new type of linebacker you're going to be seeing more in the NFL, and I don't see how Oakland could pass up on a guy like that to really help solidify their middle instead of them trying to come in and re-sign guys or sign guys off the street like they just signed Preston Brown, I think. Yeah. So yeah, I think this is a good option here. And then we go to the Eagles, and I've been really loving putting Henry Ruggs here, get them a deep threat to replace Deshaun Jackson. But Jackson, he's still he's got another year on his contract, so you don't necessarily have to replace him. I know he hasn't played at all this year, but you could get wide receiver a little later in the draft, and corner is such a big pressing need, and they were lucky to get one of the better corners in this draft to fall to him, so I got them getting Christian Fulton out of LSU. The guy's just a smooth athlete, and he doesn't really have a bad game this season. Probably his worst game was against Texas, but the guy was playing with a bum ankle. He hurt in the first quarter, so I like it. I think this, you come in, you get a guy that could help improve that secondary that has been struggling. Let's be honest. And then we got my Miami Dolphins with their second pick in the draft, and you could go safety. I don't know why you would. They already addressed interior last year with Wilkins. So Brown, I think you don't need to. Like I said, I think they're fine at receiver for now. You could address receiver if you really want to a little later in the draft. You have enough picks to do that. So you could go, I think for me it would be edge, and there's a guy that's been flying up my board. I love me some Curtis Weaver. Curtis Weaver has been the most disruptive edge in college football this season, not named Chase Young. The dudes, I know you'd be like, well, he's playing against like that Mountain West talent. It's less, they're not, or that Mountain West competition, you know, so, but even against Power 5 teams, granted he hasn't played like a supreme Power 5 team, but he has looked great. He has looked amazing. You just can't deny he can play on the edge, he can play inside. They've even had him play off the ball a few times. So I like him for Brian Flores' defense here. And before we continue, go ahead and become a bro and subscribe if you're enjoying the content. And if you really are enjoying the content, leave a thumbs up. Helps me get discovered. It's much appreciated. Much obliged. Go ahead, leave any comments you have below. Let's talk football. I enjoy it. And I stream on Twitch some nights, so be on the look for that if you want to just come and chill. And we're going to continue with the Titans pick here at 17. Titans, I think you would really they would really like to get a quarterback, but you know what, they could re-sign Tannehill. They don't have to really force themselves into a quarterback just yet. They could wait till next year, honestly. I mean, right now the only guy I have that I think is worth taking is Jake Fromm. So, but even then, I think you're reaching for quarterback there. So, I think the only place you could really address right now, maybe the offensive line, offensive interior. You could go edge, and I think that's where ultimately I want to go. And I went with Yatir Gross-Matos, edge out of Penn State. The guy is athletically, he is a monster. That he's gonna test extremely well at the combine. Teams are gonna love his burst, and you know what, he's played a lot better this year. He has at least 3 pressures in every game this season, which is a huge upgrade in production from the year before. So I definitely see the Titans as being like, you know, we could get a guy that will eventually replace Cameron Wake, because Cameron Wake's not a 3-down guy anyway, and then some guy to be next to Harold Landry. So not a bad pick. I like the pick here. And then we're gonna go to the Carolina Panthers, which this one was tough because you could go quarterback here too. Kyle Allen ain't your future. We don't know what the future holds for Cam Newton, so you could go quarterback. I mean, I don't know if they would like Jake Fromm here. I don't think he's really the type of guy they'd be looking for. He can't really push the ball downfield vertically. I mean, he can, but you'd rather not. So I don't know. We could go corner. They're pretty good at corner though. We could go safety with Grant Delpit, but I mean, kind of their biggest issue this year right now on defense is they're getting ran on. They're getting destroyed in the run. So what, you bring in Grant Delpit, a guy who's missed a third of his tackles? I don't think so. He may be good in coverage, but he's not exactly what they need right now at linebacker or at safety. So I think they come in, they get a run defender, a good run defender, and a guy that has looked better in pass or as a pass rusher. And they get Derek Brown out of Auburn. I think this is, for me, this is a good place to take him around sometime after the 15th pick. So that 15 to 20 range, I think, is about the Derek Brown. A lot of teams are high on him, and I always have to defend myself. I'm not high on Derek Brown. I like him. I just don't think he's that great of a pass rusher, but he's been a better pass rusher after he kind of struggled the first couple of games, but he's become a lot better at being an actual pocket mover. So I like it with this pick. I mean, you got Gerald McCoy, who's a free agent, Kyle Love. Honestly, they could just upgrade that interior because, hey, some of these guys, they're not going to be around forever. I know in my last draft I had Marvin Wilson here, but because of the hand injury, I think he's gonna fall, and he kind of had his production's kind of fallen off a little bit recently. I say recently, like a month ago, but yeah, Derek Brown here for the Panthers, I think, is a good pick. Started off. And now we're back to the Raiders' second pick in this draft. And guess what? Henry Ruggs is still on the board. I went with Henry Ruggs out of Alabama. They get a guy that, hey, who could be a great vertical threat. I think he's very undervalued as a route runner. I think he's a really good route runner. He's got good hands. This is a guy, honestly, who could come back to Alabama next year and be their star receiver, their number one. But I don't think he'll do that. I think he'll come out this year because, I mean, you're probably going to be a first round prospect. So, yeah, just go make your money now, boo-boo. So, yeah, I got them getting Henry Ruggs to give a now you have a nice trio of receivers there in Renfro and Williams. So, yeah, there we go. It's a good pick. And then we got the Jacksonville Jaguars. Yeah. So they went ahead, they got CeeDee Lamb. Now I think they could address that secondary, which it's kind of fallen apart recently. I mean, Ramsey's already gone. Boye, I don't think he'll be there much longer. The safeties kind of need help, and that's what I ended up going with. I knew I wanted to address secondary with this pick. So Grant Delpit's fallen. They need to get better in coverage. And he is very versatile in coverage. The guy can cover the outside slot. He can cover running backs, tight ends. He fits that bill. Just don't ask him to tackle. What? Tackling could be taught at... See, this is the tackling can be taught at the NFL. Just, I'm surprised at how bad of a tackler Grant Delpit is. So I ended up going with Grant Delpit here. And now we got the Cowboys, and the Cowboys must be shocked because I wanted to go safety there for them with Grant Delpit's fallen. I was like I was smiling. I was like, yes, it's gonna happen. And then he gets picked up. But the Cowboys, depending on what they do, who they re-sign, Byron Jones, Dak Prescott, Mari Cooper, this really could dictate how they pick here. And you know what? I ended up going with them getting some speed in the secondary. I went with Ashton Davis out of California. The guy's extremely fast. He closes on the ball like nobody's business. The Cowboys got a lot of speed on that defense. They're fast at linebacker. They just need to get faster at safety, honestly, because they definitely could improve upon that. And then Ashton Davis, I think, could just be a ball hawk, a playmaker. Like I said, the dude closes on passes like nobody's business. He's a track star after all. So I like Ashton Davis here for this pick. And then we're going to move on to the Colts. And I was stuck. With this pick. I didn't know. I was kind of thinking receiver because this team at receiver every time T.Y. Hilton goes down, you don't really know who will produce. It used to Zach Pascal. We thought it would be him, but last couple of weeks he hasn't really done anything. So I was thinking maybe Laviska Shenault Jr. here would be a good pick. But you know what? I'm like, the Colts, they have an early second round pick. They could get a receiver, probably one of the ones that'll fall out of the first round here, like maybe Tyler Johnson, Jalen Reagor, guys like that if they end up falling. But there's a lot of good receiving talent. So I went with a guy to help pressure from the inside, which is something they're kind of lacking. The defense looks really good this year, but they could definitely get a lot more pressure from the inside. So I went with Javon Kinlaw, who might be the best interior pass rusher in this draft. Kinlaw has been phenomenal. I always point to that game against Alabama against their offensive line. He just looked impressive. I like Kinlaw. As a pick for the Colts here. And next we got the Dolphins, and it's a variety. I mean, you already got Tua, you got Curtis Weaver on the defense. I think you have to go offense here. You could go receiver, but let's go offensive line. That offensive line needs to get a lot better. So there were a couple of guys I was thinking about. You have guys like Samuel Cosmi and Austin Jackson, who that perks my interest, but those guys, they're still a little, well, more so Jackson. He's a little raw with technique, and Samuel, I don't know if I'd want Samuel to be my left tackle just yet. He's super athletic. I mean, the guy definitely could play the part, but there's a guy I really like, really trust in this draft. He's the best run blocker in this draft, Jedrick Wills from Alabama. The guy's just been phenomenal. He's been a stud there for Alabama, and he looked really good against LSU. I think he's more than just a phenomenal run blocker. So yeah, they get a guy, Tua, who has protected Tua, who has kept Tua upright this past season. They get Jedrick Wills here, so I like their picks thus far. I think that's coming out with 3 picks in the draft. You go edge, offensive line, and quarterback. I don't think it's half bad for the Dolphins there. And I'm a Dolphins fan, so I can tell you that. Next, we got the Vikings on the board. And I like to put in Jake Fromm here, but I don't know. Kirk Cousins might re-sign because the way he's playing, he's looking phenomenal. So I was thinking maybe receiver, but I was like, oh, they could maybe get receiver in the second round. What they really need is help at corner because Xavier Rhodes is having an extremely down year. He's not looking that great. Trey Waynes, even when he's on the field, he doesn't look so good. Mike Hughes looked terrible against the Cowboys. So they need to address corner. So I have them getting CJ Henderson out of Florida. I think he's one of the best cover guys in this draft. Even when he's beat, he's right there. It's like you have to work. You have to work to catch on Henderson. Like he's allowed a few catches this year, but let me tell you, he was in that dude's business. That dude earned that catch. So I like Henderson. He's a good playmaker in the secondary. So let's go ahead. Let's go to the Chiefs selection. And I was really hoping Kinlaw to fall to here because Chris Jones potentially being a free agent. I really think they need help. Or they need to get better at rushing the passer. Frank Clark's looked better in the last couple of weeks, but he could use some help as well. I think the secondaries looked pretty good, but they are going to be losing a lot of guys to free agency this year. So I have them getting Trayvon Diggs. He's a big corner. I know, rough game against LSU, but for the most part, the guy's been very good. He's very athletic. He's got good quickness. He's got good technique, and he's big. So I like the Chiefs getting him here. Just getting some help there at the secondary. And next we got the Bills, and this has been a favorite of mine. I love that he keeps falling in my drafts. I don't know why. He's super talented, but I got the Bills getting Laviska Shenault Jr. I think he is the perfect weapon for Josh Allen. This guy, he is big. He'll be a monster in the screen game. He's built like a running back. He breaks tackles like nobody's business. Someone, I forgot who I was listening to, but they made a great comparison that he's got like Golden Tate speed and playmaking ability with Cortland Patterson's size. Like, I love that. I was like, that's a great comparison. So a mixture between Tate and Cortland Patterson, that's solid. I think that's about right. And he honestly, like, they talk about Josh Allen's got such a big cannon, but he's not the most accurate deep ball passer. So you get a guy that could come in and bust tackles, because I mean, Cole Beasley's nice and all, but he doesn't really do much after the catch. This guy does. I love this pick here. Next we got the Green Bay Packers. Linebacker might be the biggest need they have. Also they could probably add a guy on the defensive line, kind of a big run stopper. So I was considering Raekwon Davis here, because I may have a 3rd round grade on him, but I think some team's gonna look at, because you can't deny him physically. He's physically a monster. He just hasn't played like the monster that we all think he is, or capable of being. And so linebacker, I don't think Dylan Moses is gonna be coming out. And then Kenneth, this is way too early for me for Kenneth Murray. The dude's not a playmaker. It's just what it is. He has all the athleticism in the world, but basically he's the same player that the Packers have in Blake Martinez. So I decided to go with receiver. They really could use a receiver. I have been saying this all year. I went with T. Higgins out of Clemson. T. Higgins is a Aaron Rodgers type guy. That simple. He's big. He's fast. He's great at the contested catch. Just throw that bad boy over the shoulder. Aaron Rodgers loves that. So T. Higgins is the pick here to help Devontae Adams there in Green Bay. Next, we got the Seattle Seahawks on the board. A lot of ways you can go. They definitely could use offensive line. If Jedrick Wills was still here, I probably would have taken him with this pick. I think he's definitely a Seahawk type of player for that offensive line. He does a lot of the things that the Seahawks would want, that the Seahawks like to see in their offensive tackles. But he's not. So I'm kind of steering away from the other two offensive linemen I have on the board, just because I don't think they fit that Seahawk mold. You could go secondary, linebacker, really anywhere on the defense you can go here. And you could go edge. Like I said, you could go anywhere on the defense. And they just kind of invested a lot in edge, especially if they re-signed Clowney. So I don't think they would do that, even though there's a lot of good edge talent left on the board. So I ended up going, I was like, hey, they need secondary help. And there is a corner in this class. He's hurt, but he fits exactly this Seahawk mold, this cover 3. And I ended up going with Bryce Hall out of Virginia. I love Bryce Hall. I don't think he falls out of the first round. He's one of the better corners in this draft. I would still put him in my top 3 if healthy, but he's not, so he kind of falls down my board a little bit, but not much. And like I said, he's perfect for a Pete Carroll type offense or defense, excuse me. Next, we got the Ravens, and man, that has been a heck of a Ravens team this year. So I think you could go receiver, but they've invested a lot in receiver. You could hold off. You could go offensive line, because their offensive line is, at least the interior, starting to age, and they could probably upgrade a few guys. But I think they go defense. And what has been the biggest glaring need on their defense? It's been the edge. So I went with Terrell Lewis out of Alabama. This guy, I think he has helped his stock immensely. He's going to test very well at the combine. This guy has been a monster at Alabama. He's put up ridiculous pressure. Like he's put incredible pressure on opposing quarterbacks every game. He's probably their defensive player of the year, in my opinion. No one's played better on that defense than Terrell Lewis. This guy, he's got ridiculously strong legs. He's got long arms. This is a guy that the Ravens definitely need. They need to address the edge. They need to get better at rushing the passer. Bam, you get a guy that can do that. And next, we got the Saints on the board. Saints, another team that could go anywhere. I've been liking Jalen Reagor with this pick, but Jalen Reagor, I don't think he's coming out. I don't think he is, just because his production's been terrible this year. But a lot of that is the quarterback's fault. I still like him. He's got great speed. I still like him as a separator, but I ended up deciding to go elsewhere other than receiver, because it's a deep receiving class. They address it with I think they still have their 3rd round pick. I'm not positive though, but they could address it later, even late if they want to. I say Eli Apple is about to be a free agent. They could use some help at corner. Why not address it here? Because corners are flying off the board. I got them getting Cameron Dantzler out of Mississippi State. There was 3 guys you really could have went with here. There was AJ Terrell from Clemson. I also had Jeff Gladney out of TCU. He's a fast burner there at TCU. But I went with the size of Cameron Dantzler. The guy's been shutting down the SEC for 3 seasons now. He just needs to add a little muscle to his frame, because he's big guy, 6'2", but I want to see him get closer to that, maybe 195, 200. He's right now, I think he sits about 180, so I'd like to see that, so you could just actually be physical, you know? So I like him coming in and being just being a guy you could put right next to Marcus Lattimore. So that defense just continues to look bomb. And I got the Patriots, another team that could go anywhere. I was thinking Raekwon Davis here, but their offense has not been struggling, but they've had a hard time getting going. He really misses Gronk, and I think that I think now there is a tight end that I'm willing to say, okay, this guy could go in the first round. So I got them getting Hunter Bryant out of Washington. The guy, he won't be an inline blocker, but they kind of already have that at New England. They need a playmaker at tight end, and that's what Hunter Bryant can be. He has been Jacob Eason's playmaker there at tight end. I also consider Bryson Hopkins, but I like Hunter Bryant a little bit better. So, yeah, they get their tight end of the future, and this is not too much of a reach. I think I have Hunter Bryant at 39 on my big board, so it works out well. And for the 49ers, oh man, where do you go here? I think offensive line. I wanted to go tackle, so I was thinking Cosme, Austin Jackson, but then I was like, there's a guy falling down my board that fits this perfectly. As a matter of fact, I took him in my last mock draft, and I went Tyler Biadasz out of Wisconsin. He's just a good prospect. He should go a lot higher than here, but I don't know. I just couldn't really find a good place for him. He's kind of like the CJ Henderson for he's the CJ Henderson of the offensive side of the ball. I really don't know where to put him in this draft, but he fits perfectly with the 49ers. I think he's ideal for a zone blocking scheme, and he could play guard, he could play center, he could play wherever on that interior. So this is a good pick for the 49ers, who they could use upgrade a few of their at their guard spots. So that's it for the video. Go ahead, do the YouTube thing. I should have positional rankings coming out. If not the end of this week, it'll be the beginning of next week. So be on the look for that. Let me know what you think in the comments, and tell me what would you do differently. I know there was a few guys that for me should be first rounders, but because of injury they didn't make it, like Marvin Wilson, Julian Okwara. I think when it's all said and done, they will end up, or at least Okwara will go in the first round. But this is how it turned out. So we'll see. But until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.